What's up, guys? I am super excited to be welcoming you to my official Bridgerton and Wine series review and pairing. So, with every single episode of the Bridgerton series, I am going to review it, tell you my thoughts on the fashion, the story, the characters, everything. And then I'm going to pair that episode with a wine. Now, I've been a little clever with these wine pairings, and I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun. I'm picking some really great wines, but I'm also pairing them so that they're just right with the episode. If you know anything about wine, you know that it not only is great when enjoyed with family and friends, it's also great with a good Netflix series, and I don't think this could be any more perfect. Now, I want to give you a warning. If you have not watched Bridgerton, do not watch this video just yet, okay? The wine for this episode, I'm going to tell you the wine first. I'm going to dive into the episode, and then I'm going to share with you why I chose that wine after the review. Okay? Just to give you a heads up. So if you loved Bridgerton as much as I did, then I think you're going to enjoy this Bridgerton and Wine series review. Keep watching. All right, wine friends, in this episode 1 of the Bridgerton series, I am pairing this with For Our Daughters Rosé by Stony Wines. The back of this bottle says it all. I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to dive into the details of the series for episode 1. To the daughters beautifully gracing our presence, you are warriors, you are strength, you are love. You embody the cultivation of our values. You are the perfect display of our greatest accomplishment. For our daughters, we dedicate this to you. This wine is a stunning color, harmonizing a bouquet of fresh strawberries, tarragon and lemon, a sense of relaxation before the first sip. The description of this bottle is, of this wine, is absolutely everything. It's made by a woman for her daughters, and I'm excited to dive into this. If you've already watched episode 1, then you already know why I picked For Our Daughters, but let's get into the review. Okay, guys, I've got my notes right in front of me. I'm going to touch on a little bit of everything from episode 1. I want to start off just by saying, did you guys love the music in this series? So one of the things that I really liked about the Bridgerton series is how Shonda and the writers kind of took it and spun it. And they put us in this period, this time, in this place. But it's so modernized from that century, right? So with the music in this series, if you haven't recognized it, a lot of the songs throughout the series are modern songs. They're modern pop songs, modern R&B songs, and what they did was make those songs instrumentals. And I think it made the series more relatable, because then you're like hearing songs that you hear on the radio, or you hear when you're at Applebee's, or you hear when, you know, you're out and about with your friends or whatever. It was songs that you would recognize, and so it made you better able to relate to the characters and what they were going through in that moment. So I thought the music for this was beautifully done. Shout out to the sound engineers who made that magic happen. So kudos to the music. For the costumes for this series, we can thank Ellen Mjornerick. I think I'm saying that wrong. I'll make sure it's on the screen so you guys can see her name and be able to spell it. But Ellen did a fabulous job. So apparently she actually took inspiration from the 50s and 60s instead of from the 1800s, even though it's set there, because she felt like in order to make this feel modern and relatable, she had to glamorize the frocks that they would have been wearing in that time. And I think it definitely did. It really spoke to the characters, to who each of them were. I'm going to call out some things in episode 1 that you may or may not have noticed later on, but I love what she did with this. It was great. I mean, I literally was ready to redo my own closet. Like, okay, I want to dress like I'm on Bridgerton because this is just fly. And I love the detailing, the femininity, and the designs. Ellen, girl, you did your thing. So one thing that I really loved about this series were the characters and the actors and actresses that were chosen for it. I love that Shonda diversified what is typically a story that has all white faces. I love that Shonda chose actors from different backgrounds and everything to represent what modern culture looks like, what our world looks like. We're all mixed up, we're all beautiful, and love stories, we all should be able to see them and relate to them. I think that the casting of this series was phenomenally done. Now let's dive into episode 1. Okay, so one of my favorite parts, the beginning scenes of this show, when her sister Eloise is downstairs, she's with her sisters and some of the brothers, and they're trying to get Daphne to hurry up and get ready. And so when Eloise yells up the stairs, Daphne, you must make haste, I died. It was just the timing was perfect. It was the perfect thing to bring a smile to your face, because you're watching this this happened in the 1800s. Women are supposed to be ladies, and I love that Eloise isn't afraid to be herself. She doesn't care who's around. And so her yelling up the stairs actually reminded me a little bit of my sister, because my sister is usually urging me along to hurry up. And so it just made it very relatable to have siblings that were not all alike, and they're all so different. But I have to say, I think Eloise is my favorite. But just that opening scene, you already know watching it, you're like, okay, this is gonna be good, because this is for, I won't curse, but she was for all the ish. Eloise is here for it all. Okay, so Antoni's relationship, we get a glimpse of Antoni's relationship with Sienna right in the very opening of this series, which I think was an interesting choice, but we later figure out why they chose that, because he is the head of the Bridgerton family. So you would think that the oldest boy would be married by now and be starting his own family, but no, Antony is off having an affair with an opera singer who they are in society, this opera singer is just not quite where the Bridgerton family is. The Bridgerton family clearly comes from money. There's maids running around in the background in every single scene whenever you're in their house. And so it's just really interesting to see him with this woman that he absolutely loves but can't be with. And you can obviously tell that he can't get enough of her. And clearly the sex is amazing, because they look like they were having the time of their lives in that brief scene that we get for the introduction of their love affair. But I think Sienna is a girl who definitely should have gone into this guarding her heart just a little bit more, and we will see this later in the series, how she handles Antony. But this first episode, I was like, oh, well, this is steamy, and I just could not wait to see where it was going. I'm gonna be really intrigued whenever we dive into Antony's story next, if whether or not he actually ends up with Sienna, because they really care about each other. Okay, so the very next we go into from Antony and Sienna, and now Daphne's ready, and we are seeing the society debut. Now, I chose the For Our Daughters wine because it fits so perfectly for this episode. This first episode, we're seeing the women getting ready for this season where they will be promenading and presenting themselves as they're all looking for husbands. But first they have to present themselves and debut to society in front of the queen, and they have to have her approval. Now, Queen Charlotte, sis was fly, okay? This first scene, she had the layers of pearls and just the decadence of the pearl detailing with her dress and the beading that was down the V-neck of the dress, right in the front. It was just so beautiful. But I think For Our Daughters was so perfect because this is spring, right? Spring and summer, they're breaking out. They're looking for husbands because they all want to have them by winter. So that they can start their families and everything like that. And I think that it was just it's such a timely wine for such a timely moment in this series. The girls are kind of like competitors, not even kind of, they are competing for the most eligible bachelors in their town. And so I really, really loved this scene, and their dresses were really beautiful. Now, I have to say, the Featherington girls, they are interesting. These women are often dressed in the most colorful frocks ever that they can find. Their dresses are always, if doing the most was in the dictionary, a hashtag in the dictionary, Featheringtons would be next to it, because their clothes are always doing the most. But it doesn't make me like it any less. Like, I still think their clothes are really pretty. They're just not quite as subdued and like neutral and all that stuff as everyone else is. But I did enjoy the moment when the oldest Featherington girl passed out. One thing though, I feel like we just gotta call out Penelope Featherington. She is the baddest sister. Like, they trying to shade her because she's the curvy one. She's shorter. She's not quite as tall and lanky and all of that as her two older sisters, but sis is gorgeous, and those sisters could use some meat on their bones. Okay. I did not appreciate them shading Penelope during, you know, when we are first introduced to the Featherington family and they're getting ready for this ball and they're getting ready to present themselves to society. I feel like Penelope is a woman who wants more. I feel like she wants more. She's obviously in love, and we see that in the first episode with Colin Bridgerton, and she hasn't told him. I don't know why, because he obviously has an affection for her. To some extent, but I love their friendship, their relationship, and I thought it was kind of fun just seeing him rescue her in a scene right in the first episode, and just kind of be there for her. And I feel like it was a little bit of foreshadowing of what will happen later on, for sure, in the series. But shout out to Penelope. And we can't talk about Penelope and not talk about her and Eloise's friendship. I mean, they are like the besties for the resties that you want. I love that we get to see them not have the perfect friendship in this series, but the introduction to them in the beginning of supporting each other in their journey to both really not wanting to be out on the market at this point in life was kind of funny. It was funny watching them dodge around the dances and just hang out and just be girls. So Daphne's first dress, when she presented to the queen, I have to say this one I think was my favorite one. Maybe one of my favorite ones that she wore in this particular episode. I loved the headpiece, the headdress with the feathers. I thought it was gorgeous, and obviously the queen agreed with me, but since Daphne won, she was considered the diamond of the, what was it? The diamond of the, can't think of it off the top of my head. If you think of it, put it in the comments. But she was considered basically the diamond of the season. She was the most eligible woman that presented to the queen, and she called her flawless. And what we got to see in the society papers was kind of like the write-up as this episode went on of everything that was happening. It was nice to see Daphne get that, because I have to say she definitely showed up in front of the queen as the best dress. The beading on that white dress was really, really nice. Now in this first episode, Daphne wears a lot of neutral and blue tones, which I think were chosen really well by the costume designer Ellen, because the blue tones that she wore were very complimentary to her brown hair. Interestingly enough, all of the Bridgerton children have that same brown hair, and a lot of times in episode 1 we see them in shades of blue. So I'm gonna be curious to see if that's something that continues, but we see them in a lot of blue, the Bridgertons as a whole, and I think it's a great color for the family, but definitely for Daphne. All right, so we can't talk about episode 1 and not talk about the society papers. Girl, those society papers were juicy. TMZ has nothing on Lady Whistledown, and I mean nothing. Lady Whistledown has all the tea. And when the series first starts off, I definitely thought that it was Eloise. I mean, Eloise had Lady Whistledown energy. Like, Eloise was just not here for any of the society norms. She was not here for any of the, you know, oh, I gotta look like this and I gotta do. Eloise was like, a husband for what? And I love that she was so just kind of open about how she felt. One thing I do like about these girls in the Bridgerton family is that none of them are just kind of girls going with the flow. Even though in this time, you know, back in the 1800s, women were thought of as being good for marriage and childbirth. But I like that these girls wanted to kind of have control over their future. They weren't just relinquishing to any old husband. Like, Daphne's goal was to find a husband that she could love, somebody that she could connect with. And I appreciate that she didn't just go along with it. And based on her siblings, her sisters, none of them are going to be that way, especially Eloise. But I really, really enjoyed Eloise's boldness and bravery, even to have the audacity to come in front of the whole family and ask where babies come from. Which brings me to just kind of like, it's amazing how much they used to keep from women. Like, why would you not tell your daughters how babies are made? And we see Daphne later on in this series question her mother about that and call out her mother for her feeling so unprepared when she got married. But I really appreciate Eloise like, okay, but where do babies come from? No, because sis is pregnant and she not married. So what's going on? I think it's going to be funny to see if Daphne tells Eloise later on in series 2, you know, as the series continues, 2, 3, 4, to see if Eloise discovers that before she gets married. I will be intrigued. If you have read the Bridgerton series books, and if you don't know, this is an entire book series. There are 8 books that follow the Bridgerton children. There's 8 siblings. Her story doesn't start until I think book 4 that we get to see Eloise. So what I am looking forward to with Bridgerton is watching Eloise mature into a young woman and seeing who she ends up with. Okay, so we can't talk about Bridgerton and not talk about the Duke. The swag, the attitude, the presence, all of it. We can't not talk about him. He was everything. I liked him. I liked that he wasn't a perfect guy, but he was a guy that we could all drool over. Him and Daphne's interactions were funny. I will say that he got the right one, because had it been me he bumped into at Lady Danbury's ball, I'd have been like, what? Because he definitely had all the attitude, but Daphne was a lady and she handled it well. So shout out to Daphne for so gracefully calling him out on his BS. But watching their relationship through episode 1 and coming to an agreement to fool society so that she could look like, you know, continue to look like the most eligible woman on the market, and so that he could be taken off the market and not get harassed by all of the amazing women that were frolicking, like falling all over him. It was a good idea, and it definitely made for an interesting journey to them falling in love. I appreciate that the Duke is honest and upfront, though. He is not playing games. Like, no, I'm not looking for a wife. I am here to handle my affairs. His father has recently passed, and so he returns to town, and everybody's like, wait, you know, we're sorry for your loss, but you're the new Duke. It is interesting to watch that. I think I learned a lot, and it made me do a little research. So apparently the Bridgertons, the mom is a Viscountess, and I could be saying that wrong. But I love watching kind of the different ranks and where people are in society kind of determine who they pair with. That's interesting. And I thought it was interesting too, because while it's not something that we really, I don't want to say pay attention to, but live by out loud, but it definitely is something that people very much live by in their values and their standards and that kind of thing. So I think it was interesting to see Bridgerton, this series, take us back to a time where we did live those values out loud. We may not now, but people are still very much judgy about who their kids marry and who their kids pair with. So, to wrap up my review of episode 1, I really, really enjoyed watching everybody kind of mingle and dance at Lady Danbury's ball. I thought that Daphne's dress was absolutely gorgeous. She wore a white dress that had these stones on it. It was so, so pretty. I really, really liked that dress. And then I also really I enjoyed the camaraderie between the friends in the series, the Duke and Daphne's older brother, Colin, Eloise and Penelope, there were 2 other girls, and I don't even know if we know their names because I don't remember their names being mentioned, but there's 2 other girls. One is kind of like Daphne's rival, her immediate rival. She's the one that when the prince comes on the scene that Daphne is kind of like, fighting for the attention of the prince later on against this young lady. So I like that there are pairs of friends, and we get to kind of see those dynamics play out through this courting season. I also really liked how Lady Danbury and the mother Bridgerton decide to hook up the Duke and Daphne. That was, I was like, this is going to be real interesting because they have an agreement already, and now the mamas done got together. And Lady Danbury, yes, is more like an auntie to him, but I just thought it was really interesting seeing them kind of plot to get them together, not even knowing that they already have met and really ain't feeling each other. So what I'm curious about with this episode, episode 1, is what you thought about Daphne and the Duke's agreement. Did you think that they would eventually end up together? And I mean, it's a love story, but did you think that there would be a little more, that they would fall faster? I was actually surprised it took them so long to fall for each other and to actually talk about it. But I want to hear from you, and I also want to hear from you about Lady Whistledown. Did you know who she was from the very first episode? I feel like I didn't. I thought it was a whole bunch of the characters until it was revealed. And then I felt like by the time it was revealed, I was surprised. So drop in the comments for me your thoughts on episode 1 of Bridgerton, the series. And I want you to go back as you're rewatching the series with me, and I release these videos, and pick up these wines that I'm pairing with it and enjoy them while you are watching. So remember, this wine for this series is Stony Wines. Well, I'm sorry, for this episode, it's Stony Wines For Our Daughters Rosé. It's a perfect varietal to pair for this season that they are in an episode, or that they're kicking off in episode 1 of Bridgerton. And the ripeness, the fresh fruit, the fresh red fruit, and the amazing, delicious rosé in your glass, appropriately titled as we celebrate these women coming out into society, I think you'll enjoy as you rewatch and dedicate an hour to episode 1 of Bridgerton, the series. I can't wait to talk about episode 2 with you. Let me know your thoughts so far down below, and if you're excited about going through this with me, doing the wine pairings with Bridgerton on Netflix. Cheers!